Hello, hey, I'm Jake. Today is episode number 6 in our Music Theory Basics course. So far we've talked about what is music theory and why it's important. We've talked about major scales, minor scales, intervals, triads, and today we are talking about triads in a key, chords in a key. What does that mean, and why it's important, why it's useful, and why it's going to help. So today is going to be building on all of that, and I really love today's lesson. It's one of my favorites because it's going to tie all of these things together. So let's dig into it. Here's chords in a key.
Hello and welcome. I am Jake, a full-time musician and music educator based in Portland, Oregon. I make about half my living recording, touring, and performing, and the other half teaching lessons in guitar, piano, voice, songwriting, and more. And that's why I'm here on YouTube, to share with people around the world my music, my experience, and the lessons that have helped me along the way.
All right, so we're talking about chords in a key. Now, really importantly, we got 2 words to define. Chords is just a group of notes. Today, very specifically, we are talking about triads, that is 3-note chords. So in the last lesson, we looked at how to build triads, that there are 4 different types of triad: major, minor, diminished, augmented, and we learned the exact steps that we need to take to get there. So that's going to be really crucial to today's lesson moving forward, is the idea of triads and the differences between each one. Remember that playing in a key just means that we're using the notes of that scale. So if I was in the key of C, for example, I'm using all the notes of the C major scale. And I could be using those to make chords. I could be using those to make melodies. But I'm using those notes in different combinations. Now, if I was in the key of B flat, I would be using the notes from the B flat major scale. And if I was in the key of D minor, I would be using the notes from the D minor scale. Let's start with our favorite, C major. So remember that the key of C, the first step, is identifying the notes of the key of C. We need to know the notes. So it just so happens that if we were to start on C and we follow our major scale formula that we learned in a previous video, we get all white keys, that is all natural notes. So we're going to start there because it's the easiest to visualize on the piano. So in the last lesson, we learned about triads. Now, if I'm in the key of C, my root note is going to be C, starting out. So we're going to start on C here. We're going to build a triad on the note C to start. And the triad that I get is a C major triad. So, again, that's a C major because we have a major third followed by a minor third. We have built a major triad. So I have C major triad. And if I take this up the scale, or up a note, now I'm on D. So here I have D, F, and A. So here I have a D minor triad. Now, we know this is a minor triad because of my formula, and the formula that we talked about in the last video. This is a minor triad because I have a minor third followed by a major third. So I have a D minor. Now I can't play D major here because F sharp is not in the key of C. So again, we're talking about triads in the key. I am in the key of C right now, so I can only play white keys. So we get a D minor. Now if we keep that going and we keep bringing this up the scale, we get an E minor, followed by an F major, followed by a G major, then an A minor. Last but not least, a B diminished chord. Remember that a diminished triad is a minor third followed by a minor third. So I have B, D, F, a little crunchy, and then I'm back to C. So to recap, all of the notes in the C major scale, when played in triads, I get a C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and I'm back to C. So we have 7 different triads in the key of C. C major, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished. So if I was writing a song, I can take these and I can put them in different combinations. And I can build a song out of those. And we'll get to that. Again, we got a whole nother video series on songwriting and composition. So we'll do more of that stuff down the line. But very fundamentally, if you're in the key of C, you have 7 different chords that are diatonic to the key. Diatonic means that we are using the notes of that scale, the notes that agree with that key, the notes that agree with that scale. So we're not using any notes that are outside of that. We'll get to that down the line. Okay, so let's check out another key. Let's move it to G major. So here I have a G major triad. So we're in the key of G major. So my first step is to make a G major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. That's an F sharp right there, and then a G. So again, going back to our major scale lesson, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Whole step gives me an F sharp, and then last but not least, I finish out on a half step back to G. So I get a G major scale with an F sharp in there. So this is really important. Remember that as we go and as we build our different triads, we're always going to need to play an F sharp instead of an F natural. That's what we don't want. So let's start on G. And just like we did last time, we're going to start to take this up the scale. So we go from G to A minor. Now this is a minor triad because again, minor third, major third. We get a minor triad. And the next one, we get a minor triad. So B, D, F sharp. And remember, I have to play an F sharp because we're in the key of G right now and we're just playing diatonically. We're just playing in agreement with the notes of the key, the notes of the scale. So here's a B minor. You'll note that in the key of C, we had this F on top, which made it a B diminished. But here in the key of G, that has to be an F sharp. So we get a B minor. Then a C major, then a D minor. So again, D, F sharp, A gives us a D major. So we have D major, D, F sharp, and A. So again, in the key of C, that was an F natural, which changed our chord. That was a D minor. This is a D major, again, major third plus minor third. So we have a D major. To keep it going, we get an E minor, and then F sharp diminished, F sharp, A, and C gets you an F sharp diminished, minor third, and then last but not least, we're back to a G major. So all told, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, back to G. So here's the really cool thing, is that pattern and that sequence right there of major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished was exactly the same from the key of C to the key of G. And if we go to any key, we get major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. We get that exact same pattern. So we get the same exact pattern for these keys. And they're going to be the same from major key to major key. That pattern of major triad, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished is going to be the same from the key of G major, the key of C, the key of D, the key of F sharp, the key of B flat, whatever it is. That pattern is always going to be the same. The first chord is major, second chord is minor, etc. And so this is why we get these Roman numerals. So the Roman numerals are written to indicate the number and the quality. So you have a capital Roman numeral, meaning major. You have a lowercase Roman numeral, meaning minor. If it has a little circle on it, that indicates diminished. And the reason that we would use those is because we could have a chord progression that was in the key of C. This is a 1, 6, 4, 5, the first chord progression that I ever learned, and I'm in the key of C. So my 1 chord is C, my 6th chord is A minor, my 4th chord was an F, and my 5th chord was a G. So 1, 6, 4, 5. But I could take a 1, 6, 4, 5. I could also play it in the key of G. 1, 6, 4, 5. So if I go through the key and I know all of the chords, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just like we did, then I know that 1 is G. I know that the 6th chord was E minor, the 4th chord was C, and the 5th chord was D. So more on that stuff later. We'll talk about that. But I did want to address it because it is so common. It allows us to transpose. It allows us to play songs in different keys. But again, more on that later. Okay, so we're back for another episode of Guitar Corner. Here is the aside for all of the guitar players out there. We are talking about chords in a key, more specifically triads in a key. So I will say my recommendation is to learn all of those triads in a key, starting with the key of G and the key of C fundamentally. So like we just talked about, the key of C, C, D minor, E minor, F, G, and A minor, and B diminished. We'll get to those down the line as well, diminished chords. But make sure you have at least those first 6 in your chord vocabulary. So the key of C, the key of G. Now, guitar tends to play toward the sharp side of the circle of fifths. And if you're confused by that, that is just fine. All that means is that guitar tends to play to the keys that use sharps rather than using flats. So whereas the keys of F and B flat, E flat, and A flat start to accumulate more and more flats, guitar, just the way that it's set up, makes it easier to play towards the sharps. Those are the keys of G, D, A, E. That is my 2 cents for learning the triads in each key on the guitar. Make sure you have a handle, especially on the key of C and the key of G. So, the $1 million question, why is this important? Well, I think it's important for a lot of reasons. Number one, because thinking in a key, again, gets us thinking musically. If we are learning a song and we know the foundation, we know the starting point, it gives us sort of a common vocabulary for the chords that we're going to use, for melodies that we might learn, for a solo that we might play, and if we're playing with other musicians, it helps us align and all be on the same page. And then, once we know those triads, it not only helps us learn songs, but as we'll see, and as I'm really excited to cover, we're going to talk about using those to create songs, to build chord progressions, and to really be creative and compositional with everything that we just learned. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, if you got something out of it, please drop me a like. Also, if you have any questions, if there was something that didn't make sense, if there's something I overlooked, please let me know in the comment section, and also let me know if there are any videos that you want to see me make in the future. As we move forward, we're going to take these things and we're going to start to talk about using them in musical, creative ways. So if that's something that you're interested in, please subscribe. As always, Thank you for being here. Thanks for following along. Whether you've been along for the ride the whole time or you're stopping by for the first time, I appreciate you and thank you for making the world a more musical place. I'll see you in the next one.